everyone. This is the Metropolitan Council meeting this December 11th, 2024. Good afternoon. This is an exciting meeting because it's the time for our public hearing. I want to just talk a little bit about the agenda today. One, it is a regular business items we're going to be going through, but at 6 o'clock, the council will be opening up for public comments on our 2025 budget and levies. So that's important, and that's not happening until 6 o'clock. And then once we do that, we'll have the comment period. We'll have an opportunity to vote, but the comment period will go really through this meeting up until the time for additional in-person comments. Comments so far during this whole comment period have been forwarded to council members, so everybody knows that we've actually seen them. At the actual time, at 6 o'clock, after our public hearing, our Chief Financial Officer, Ned Smith, will make a brief presentation, and then we'll have an opportunity for a vote. So if there's any residents here who would like to make public comments, please sign up, and we'll take people in the order they sign up. If you've come here with your home tax statement and you live in Ramsey, Dakota, Hennepin, and you're concerned about your city taxes, I'm very sympathetic, but we've had people testify about that, and this is not the right forum for that. So talk to our finance people in the back of the room. There he is, our Chief Financial Officer, waving. If you have any questions, he is your guru. He's ours, and we'll share him just for tonight. And with that, also, I want to just make a quick comment on our agenda. Only inside nerds like myself care, but the agenda was posted with the Management Committee reporting before the Transportation Committee. We've moved the Management Committee reports after Transportation Committee because some of the actions actually depend upon actions that may or may not be passed at the Transportation Committee. That makes sense. Anyway, those two sections have been flipped. Otherwise, it's exactly the same agenda. With that, I will call the meeting to order and assume the agenda is approved unless anybody objects. We are on to the minutes from our meeting on November 13th, 2024. So if there is a motion and a second to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, corrections, additions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, those minutes are approved. And we have a lengthy consent business agenda for approval. And I know we've all looked at it carefully, so I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the business consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any comments, questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the consent business items were approved. On to our reports of standing committee, starting with the community development. Councilmember Bento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council members, business item 2024-342 is to award $3 million in Livable Communities Demonstration Account affordable home ownership grants to 10 projects. The affordable homeownership grants advance the Thrive outcomes of prosperity, equity, and livability by creating affordable homeownership opportunities for Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color that have historically been excluded, and by spreading the council's investment in a full range of housing choices across the region. 11 grant applications were submitted to the 2024 Affordable Homeownership Program. All projects were reviewed by a panel of external reviewers. Following Council's guidance for this program to maximize the number of projects and homes created, the recommendation awards full funding to the top scoring projects and partial funding to lower scoring projects. Partial project funding is rounded to the nearest full home until all funds have been expended. The grants are expected to create 46 homeownership opportunities for households living at 80% of the area median income or less, or equivalent to an annual 2024 income of $97,800. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council, 1, award 10 livable communities demonstration account affordable homeownership grants totaling $3 million as outlined in Table 1. And 2, authorize the Executive Director of Community Development to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That action is approved. Thank you, Councilmember. On to there are no reports from the Environment Committee, but there are a number from the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and there have been many more if you have not accommodated me putting many things on the consent agenda. So there's only 6, so thank you very much. So our first 2 items, business item 2024-246 and 312, both concern the Blue Line extension, and we have a short presentation before we have those items, and I'd welcome Nick Thompson.
All right, welcome, Mr. Thompson.
Chair and council members, thank you for having us tonight. Both the Blue Line extension and Jim Alexander is going to give you an overview of the Green Line extension. As we have multiple items both on consent and the regular agenda, we thought it'd be a good time to sort of wrap up where these projects are this year and where we're going next year. In terms of capital projects overall, it's been quite a year. We've got, as you'll see from Blue Line, we made major advancements on Blue Line. Green Line had a tremendous year in construction. And then we had a few other projects, Gold Line extension, construction wrapped up, and B Line almost wrapped up construction. So a lot of activity, and we want to kind of highlight the 2 light rail projects tonight. So one of the main items you'll be asked to vote on here is the capital grant agreement amendment 1 for the engineering and construction of the engineering construction grant agreement with Hennepin County. This is a $173 million grant to be approved hopefully by the council and also by Hennepin County tomorrow. That will allow us to continue to advance the project through up until the construction phase of the project. So this is funding through engineering, completion of the environmental document, and the beginning of right-of-way procurement. Of that $173 million, that's a roughly 18 months worth of work. Over the next 6 months, as I'll talk about in schedule, that's when we anticipate finishing the record of decision, major milestone. So about 40 million of that 173 million would be spent over the next 6 months on that activity. So this funding provides the council the funding to provide for staffing, office space, also for our engineering firms, large teams that are working on delivering this project. Since over the past year, this project, just a recap of what this project is, it has evolved some over the past year. It's 13 miles from Target Field Station north of Brooklyn Park. It's 13 new stations. When we began the year, there were 12 stations. Through the municipal consent process, the project decision board and of council and county did accept Minneapolis's request for a 13th station at Washington and Broadway Avenue. So that is becoming part of the design of the project now moving forward. In October, we did receive unanimous official support for the project's design and station locations from all of the cities and Hennepin County as required by state law. So that step was completed that allowed us to move towards what we call 60% design, which we anticipate to be completed in the spring. Then we would move into final design. Currently anticipating some construction could start to occur in late 2026. The overall phase of the schedule that we're working on with a lot of assumptions about progress being made over the next couple of years is we're just finishing that design phase. The record of decision, the important milestone, as soon as we receive the record of decision, which is a decision of FTA, That allows us to then begin the right-of-way process as one major milestone. As you can imagine, on a 13-mile corridor in an urban environment, there's a tremendous amount of property and right-of-way that drives a lot of the schedule, and we need to get started on acquisition of those rights in order to meet this construction schedule. The other major milestone this summer, which is a key for our local funding partner, is requesting a rating on the project from FTA to see if it scores for federal funds in the CIG program. That's a program that is possibly undergoing some change with the change in administration. As part of that request for a rating on the project this summer, the local funding partner must make their financial commitment to the local share of the project. So this is an important year in 2025 where we try to get a signal from FTA about what part of the project will be federally eligible and what will need to be funded by the Hennepin County as the local provider of the capital funds. As we state in the business item, as you recall, Metropolitan Council is responsible for leading the project delivery, but we are not in the capital side of this project. We will be responsible for the operating and capital maintenance expenses on the project once it opens to revenue service. This is a project very similar to Central Corridor in terms of how it would be constructed within an existing road right-of-way mostly. And so we're anticipating 3 full years of construction. It really depends on when we can start the construction. Our goal is to begin at the beginning of a construction season in the spring. But if any of the schedules slip environmentally or design, it could easily extend this time frame. But this is a schedule that could be met if all things that are in alignment on the path that we've projected now. So a late opening in very late 2030. But that is an aggressive schedule at this time. So in terms of environmental, what we've talked a lot about this project is it's not just a transit project. This is a project in the community where the community has expressed that there has to be a strong focus in parallel on anti-displacement. The community, the disruption of a project like this has a potential to impact and displace people who want to live along this corridor, who have lived there a long time. They want to stay along this corridor and benefit from this project, not be displaced by construction or displaced by development if they would like to stay in the corridor. So anti-displacement is a key focus of this, along with the environmental. It is both within the environmental document, but also within the design and other elements of it. So I'll touch on where we're at with that phase. So we had a draft supplemental EIS that had public comment. We received those comments and published the draft. And now we're going through creating revisions to the draft to seek the final document, hopefully in July of next year. It is the FTA who issues the final record of decision. So we anticipate submitting potentially our final documents this December to begin that process of review and hopefully finalization. One of the steps we're at now, probably the most important step that we are seeking public input on, is we must identify how we're going to mitigate the impacts that we've identified in the environmental impact statement. The impacts could be anything from noise, vibration, environmental justice, property impacts. They've now been identified, and our effort now is to identify what items we will use to mitigate those. It's a very important step that requires a lot of input from the community, from our partners, from other agencies, from businesses, and so that's the step we're in now. We have several public processes underway taking input on that. And some of it, mitigation is just technical. If you identify a major noise impact, you must mitigate that to a sufficient level. And same with vibration. So we're doing technical surveys, but other parts of it are permitting, parkland impacts, wetland impacts, and all of those have mitigation items that have scope that we need to develop. They go into the cost estimate. And then there's some other elements that where we really need some input about how much should we invest in mitigation. As I said, we will be submitting an extensive list of potential mitigation items relatively shortly. And then it's up to FTA to approve or not approve each of those items. If they are approved, then they become project eligible expenses. Some of the environmental justice items that we have identified that must be mitigated are, as you've heard, on many of our projects, the business impacts during construction. We're taking a lot of input this year for Blue Line, but we've also been taking it on the other projects this year. What would help businesses to minimize the impact? We know the construction will cause impact. Major construction infrastructure does do that. What are some things we can do within the project to help mitigate that? And so I think we're going to have an opportunity to be real creative on this project and find some eligible ways to do business impacts mitigation that we have not been able to do on other capital projects. So looking forward to that. We've also identified key loss of actually on-street parking and other business parking that we must mitigate, particularly in North Minneapolis. Part of our route is on a road called 21st Avenue, parallel to Broadway Avenue. That is currently a road, is going to transition to a transitway. So that is impacting the environmental justice community. And we held a workshop last night about how we should design that transitway in the best way to kind of keep the community character of North Minneapolis in that area. And so getting good impact there, but that's a mitigation element. And then displacement is both direct and indirect are things we will be mitigating. Some of the ideas that we've been hearing from the community, just at high level terms, like support for community programs that help people stay within their housing, help with rents, help with kind of define the cultural placekeeping and design of neighborhoods that have long existed around where we're building this. Setting up storefront centers where we can provide technical assistances to businesses and renters and homeowners to help them stay within the corridor. This is going to be a strong partnership with the county, as the county is often a provider of these type of services. They're more the experts on some of these services and have them, and we'll be creating storefront places where you can go to during the construction phases and meet with staff if you need assistance. Help build the Blue Line extension is our effort going forward, which is both the workforce to build the project and the development around it, but also the small businesses that will be support DBEs as part of this. So it's both initiatives for labor, for training, for getting small firms into our DBE program, for connecting DBEs with prime contractors in events that we've been real successful with expanding that within this corridor. We've already started a lot of that work. Hennepin County's taken a really strong lead on the workforce coordination because of the training dollars and other partnerships they have with a lot of the workforce, and the council is part of that too. Any support or new initiatives we can do for supporting businesses during construction, from marketing to signing to, of course, maintaining access and minimizing the amount of construction around the businesses are all part of that too. And then in particular, we must solve parking around the Penn and Broadway has been identified as an environmental justice impact. And so this might be a case where we will be building some off-street parking as mitigation. That is for the businesses around there, not necessarily like a park and ride like we're used to building. So a unique kind of situation there based on the impacts of the construction. So all of these are like high-level items that have multiple mitigation items that we'll be requesting for approval in the environmental document and taking public input on. As we've developed this project and you had presentations here on anti-displacement and the council's effort there, we've kind of working with the community and our local partners. We've talked about items of anti-displacement that are within the project, meaning things that are going to be eligible for project fundings. And then also with elements that are running in parallel with the project. One of the main items is created by the state legislature, was actually an action sort of on your consent agenda tonight. The creation of the Anti-Displacement Community Prosperity Board, the community board that tonight in the consent agenda, we were provided $10 million to pass through to the Hennepin County as the administrative agent to this board for anti-displacement programs that the they can use this funding for if it's matched with at least $1 for $1. So significant, that board, it started in June. I think the chair chaired the first meeting, and now they have a new board, and they are in the process of defining how they're going to allocate those, what their priorities will be for anti-displacement. That was an important step you took tonight to help get the funding in place to the county for that. So, and then there's a full report on what our partners can do for anti-displacement along with the project, including a lot that the Met Council will be doing through grants that we already have in place and through coordination and support and delivery of this project. So I want to highlight one design element that's before the community today, right now, and it's in the news, and it's also one of the kind of the one remaining elements that is impacting the environmental process, but also as an outcome of the municipal consent process. And that is the Lowry Avenue station near North Memorial Hospital. We've talked about this before, but it's a station that is physically in Robbinsdale, Minneapolis, within the Minneapolis Parkway, and right next to North Memorial Hospital. In the resolutions of support for municipal consent, Robbinsdale and Minneapolis asked us to continue to look at the design options on that. They approved the design that we submitted, but asked that we consider some of the concerns that the park board had for connection to the parkway and the hospital had for connections to the hospital. So from that, we have developed options A through H in design and started to work with each of those partners, and I've started to roll those out to the public for input over the last couple weeks. I'm just going to show you briefly option A tonight and option H. Option A is the currently approved design, and option H is what we feel is a strong other candidate that meets each of the concerns that the park board and the hospital had expressed. And so it's two options that we think are the leading two design options that we're taking out to the public that could be built with this project. And I'll have to describe it. It's a complicated area. The North Memorial Hospital is to the left side of the picture there. The complicated part about this interchange is it runs diagonal to the parkway. Lowry Avenue connects in here and also to the hospital. As you'll see in future presentations, Lowry Avenue is an important potential ABRT route for us. So this will be, if selected as a future ABRT route, an important connection for ABRT and Blue Line Extension. The park board's concern was that the proposed design would cross the parkway and asked us if there'd be a design that we could separate the rail from the parkway so there didn't need to be a at-grade crossing for the trails. And so, though we feel this design, the design itself is right in the middle of those two bridges that are there, that's County Road 81. For context, those bridges are about 2 years old, so very recent. So we're trying to find a design that fits within the investment that has just recently been made. But it's a very complicated area. It's a unique area historically. That used to be a giant roundabout back in the 20s and 30s. That was the highway out of town back in this time, and so a lot of traffic through there. And then it's Theodore Wirth Parkway and Veterans Memorial Parkway coming together at that location. So it's part of the historic grand rounds also. So almost everything you can imagine coming together here, but it's also a great location for transit. That is going to be a high ridership with North Memorial. It meets our connections to the parkway and serves both the north part of Minneapolis and Robbinsdale well neighborhoods. So this design is what we have going forward. And the next design I'll show you, the red road there is the parkway, and we've essentially taken the elevation and lowered the parkway below the railroad tracks to create a third level. And then raised Lowry Avenue to be an interchange with County Road 81. So more bridges in this design. The unfortunate part of this design is it would require us to replace those brand new bridges that were built for County Road 81. It does meet, it's a really good transit design. I think it would satisfy the concerns of the parkway. but it would be significantly more cost and to construct this because of replacement of those bridges. But from a design perspective, we believe this is a good design in the very long term. And so it's a decision that will be before the project decision board and the local funders about, what's an option that needs to go forward here. We do need to settle on one of the design. The decision has been made to put a station at this location. So we're just trying to finalize which of the designs. And this is an important, if we do change to this new second design, it will impact schedule in addition to cost. And so, that's a decision that will be coming up over the next couple months. There'll be more input. We will be presenting to the park board to get their official kind of input. The Corridor Management Committee will see these options next week. And the public is being asked to weigh in on not just these two options, but all 9 of the options that we're presenting. So lots of choices. And then lastly, I'll just close with look-ahead schedule for 2025. I've mentioned a few of the key milestones. Environmental is the most important. Local funding, local resolution from Hennepin County supporting their financial commitment to the local funding will be important. Hennepin County does need to get an understanding from FTA about what the federal share will be. This is the year they kind of need that signal. That's going to be a challenge. The design will advance to past 60% design. So a lot of work will occur. No construction in 2025, but we will be getting our procurement documents ready for this, meeting with industry all year long, getting the subcontractors and workforce ready for building this as soon as, and then a procurement on schedule for 2026. So a lot of it work done this year, and a lot to come ahead, but that's where we're at in relation to the 2 business items tonight. I'll take
Any questions? So I'm curious, the A and then H, is that a result of last night's workshop that you got H as a more attractive, popular, conceivable
Sure.
option?
This H has been one that has been supported as a second alternative by the staff of each of the cities and the park board so far. And the first workshop from the public showed strong support for H and A over the other ones. Some of the other options that I didn't mention, we studied tunnels. We've studied variations, a wide range of them. Some of them just had almost near fatal flaws. And the public really gravitated towards these 2 being ones that were stronger options.
Councilmember Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, and then if there's no other questions, I can present the item. But what is the estimated spend between now and the record of decision from FTA?
Yeah, Chair, Councilmembers, we are spending about $4 million a month, so about $40 million through June. It starts to ramp up towards the record of decision as we get ready for right away.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thoughts? Oh, Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. Regarding the rating, I see the rating being submitted to FTA, and that happens, it appears in August.
Correct.
And then is there a response? That's part 1 of the question, and when does that come? Part 2 is, are we anticipating or looking toward the potential of any rating change, criteria changes during that period of time?
Chair, Councilmember, great questions. We are required to submit for rating by August, 3rd week of August, and we anticipate a response later in the fall. And our target for the rating is to be eligible for federal funds under current program. You must be rated as a medium or higher. We're forecasting that we are rated as a medium or higher under current guidelines. We also have indications, there's been draft new guidelines under the current administration that have, any day we're anticipating being adopted. And as we understand it, if they're adopted, our rating would be even higher. It's even more favorable. And then what the next administration would do, there is a chance that they could change the rating criteria. Probably not within the, as understanding, probably not within the timeframe of 2025. So indications are we would be rated under the new guidance that should come out any day now. And we've seen the draft of that guidance, and the project would score well in that guidance.
Thank you very much, and appreciate your keeping us informed.
All right, good questions. Councilmember Vento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note that at the end of tonight's meeting, we'll have approved both consent agenda items and non-consent agenda items regarding the blue line totaling $226 million. I think that's an important number for us to be aware of, particularly given the uncertainty of the next 4 years.
Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2024-246 is to request the Metropolitan Council to authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute the Metro Blue Line Extension Capital Grant Agreement Amendment Number 1. This amendment is contingent upon the Q4 capital budget amendment business item that we'll have tonight and the Hennepin County Board approval on December 12, 2024. The capital grant agreement number 22I038 was executed on October 4th, 2023 with a not to exceed amount of $75,305,000 and will terminate on December 31st, 2024. The proposed amendment number 1 to CGA number 22I038 allocates additional funding in an amount not to exceed $173,600,000 and extends the termination date to June 30th, 2026. In early 2024, the overall Metro Blue Line Extension project budget was estimated at $3.2 billion. A new update to the budget will be developed in 2025 to reflect changes in the project design and commitments in the supplemental final environmental impact statement. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute the Metro Blue Line Extension Capital Grant Agreement 22I038 Amendment Number 1 with Hennepin County and Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority in the amount not to exceed $173,600,000.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will be voting favorably for both of the Blue Line business items this evening. As you all know, I have some mixed feelings about this project. One of the things when I first interviewed with the nominating committee for this term was I thought our success as a transit agency would be really contingent upon building the right things at the right time, and I'm still a little skeptical on this one. And Nick is very patient because he's heard me say this several times. But I also think it's really important for us to have all the facts in front of us. Right now, this is all being funded by Hennepin County to this point. The big things that we will learn with the record of decision is that's coming through the federal government. It comes from FTA. There's a lot of uncertainty right now what's going to happen with the CIG program at FTA. And by then, my hope is we will have some answers, and that will tell us a little bit more what the federal outlook looks for this side of things. The other very, very important thing that we'll have that's connected to that is we will have the formal financial commitment from our funding partners. The legislature was quite clear when they told us that we were not to spend any sales tax money on it. We've been clear with our policies that we're not going to spend any other money. So we're going to be looking for that commitment, and those will be the two things that will be known. So that's why I asked the question of what gets spent between now and then and what's going to get us to those points. So because to Councilmember Vento's point, we're authorizing a lot, but there might be a point where some things change, but at least we'll have all the facts in front of us.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion is carried.
Mr. Chair, I would request that the minutes reflect that Councilmember Vento and I voted nay.
That's granted.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2024-312 is to request the Metropolitan Council to authorize the regional administrator to issue limited notice to proceed number 3 for the engineering services consulting contract. This also is contingent upon the Q4 capital budget amendment business item 2024-332 and Hennepin County County Board approval on December 12, 2024. The council authorized the negotiation and execution of the engineering services contract for the BLE project in April 2023 and issued LNTP number 1 and number 2 to the engineering services contract 22P103A to facilitate preliminary engineering activities sufficient to meet or complete the municipal consent process. LNTP number 3 for contract 22P103A will allow for preparation of design plans, final engineering activities, identifying the right-of-way impacts, and developing updated cost estimates. LNTP number 3 will allocate the remaining authorized funding in an amount of $370,475,448 to Kimley Horn and Associates. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to issue limited notice to proceed number 3 for the engineering services consultant contract 22P103A in an amount of $37,475,448.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That
Nay.
That motion also granted. And there were 2 negative votes, Councilmember Wolf and Councilmember Vento, for the record. All right, Councilmember Burberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to thank Director Thompson for, our Deputy Manager Thompson. I'm calling him by his old title. And then now I would invite Jim Alexander because we have 2 green line items coming up, and they'll also provide an update on the green line.
Welcome, Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, council members. So we have a PowerPoint to run through before the business items that can be pulled up. All right, so we last visited, I believe in March of this year, giving you an update on the project. You've seen this slide before. This is all the things we're building. Actually, we built a lot of this now. We're really kind of getting to the final stages on this project, believe it or not. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk about development. We just got some new numbers from Michael Kranz at Metro Transit, and things are continuing to look upward. I think we previously reported about, $2.8 billion of permitted or built development along the corridor. Now we're looking at a little over $3 billion. And this is numbers from 2011 through 2023 that have been tracked. And so I think that report is going to be coming out here fairly soon. But things continue to blossom out there, frankly, at a number of the stations. Overall, the project is roughly about 85% done now, and we'll talk about the tunnel here in a little bit, but we are making good progress. We had a lot of good work done this year. And you recall that there are 2 primary contractors working on this project. London McCrossan is the civil contractor. They are responsible for the track stations and roadway work, tunnels, bridges, those type of things. And then the systems is led by Aldrich Parsons. And so those are the 2 primary contracts we have in this endeavor here. So this is the systems contractor working on the 62 tunnel that is more or less complete. There's still some finishing items on the systems end. And as we progress from essentially west to east, civil is really done for the most part all the way up to about Beltline, Minneapolis remaining. And I have some photos to show you the status of that. But this is more systems work in the Shady Oak station area near the border between Minnetonka and Hopkins. This image on the right is a pocket track that we have for operations to stage vehicles that will accommodate up to 6 vehicles as needed. And there's provisions to build a second pocket track if that need comes in the future as operations progresses. It's one of the kind of proud moments that I have. We've finished a lot of trail on the project. It feels like this is a trail project, not a rail project, but we essentially the trails are done except for the heart of Minneapolis, and so things are going really well in that fashion. We had a little tour earlier this year with the chair and highlighted some of the trail segments, so that was a good moment for the project there. As we progress into St. Louis Park, this is What you see in the distance, that's a pedestrian bridge for that trail system, and the systems contractor putting up the overhead contact wires. We essentially have wiring up all the way from Southwest Station up through Beltline now, so that's progressing very nicely. And then the tunnel, my favorite topic here. So we are about 95% done on the structure itself. So things are progressing. We're actually starting to string rail through the east part. These are images from the west part of the project, and you can see the Cedar Isles condominium in the distance on that left image where we're placing the roof slab there. But things are working well. The contractor continues to work on this segment. Most of the other work is kind of shut down with the cold weather, but they're actually doing form work today and being out there and in the chilly, willy weather doing the concrete. So that's going to progress. We look to have this tunnel structure done in the first quarter of next year. So that's progressing very well. I think I've shown images like this before. This is the inside of the tunnel, or as I indicated, we're starting to string rail through here. This is just one of the tubes in the tunnel on the east end. And then earlier this fall, we did some night work where we had to put the freight rail in its final location at Cedar Lake Parkway. That was quite a big endeavor. We had a little bit of disturbance and work overnight to do that because we have to work around the railroad's schedule in terms of getting this work done. So we had to work like a 24-hour operation to get that done. And then Cedar Lake Channel, this is just east of that tunnel where we had built 3 bridges across the channel. This is the channel between Cedar Lake and Lake of the Isles in Minneapolis. And we did some light testing about a month ago or so at Bassett Creek Valley Station, and this is that image there. And then we've also made the connection to the main line at near Target Field. So that work essentially have rail now installed all the way from the main line in Minneapolis near Target Field out to about Bryn Mawr Station, and then of course we have rail completed, as I think I reported before, from Southwest Station to Beltline. So we still have the segment between Beltline there and Bryn Mawr. And it is our goal to get rail all the way installed so we can pull train cars through the tunnel and out west so we can start testing in the third quarter of 25. And that's going to be done in 3 phases. The first phase from Beltline to Southwest. The second phase would be from the main line down to about Bryn Mawr, and then the last phase would be from A to B, the whole alignment. And that's all programmed to start occurring in 25 into 26. And this is a image that just kind of remind folks of the change order that we did a couple of years ago now, where we continue to have the systems contractor build out the equipment, manufacturing, traction power substations, signal houses, all that sort of thing, and we stored it locally so we'd have it ready to go. And we did this because of the delay that we've talked about in the past to both contracts, civil and systems, and this allowed us to continue with manufacturing and avoid the supply-demand issues during the COVID and post-COVID era. So that storage facility has been a big savior for us, from my perspective. So I will hand it off to Transportation Chair.
Thank you. You want to see if there's questions? Or?
Any questions? Councilmember Vento.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. First of all, thank you very much, Jim. This was an encouraging presentation, and for most of us currently on the council, you've been doing this work a lot longer than we've been here, and it's been a pretty grueling process, I'm sure. I do want to suggest one thing. Please don't use slide number 11 on a day like today. It was really difficult to see those people on Cedar Lake. And I want to thank you for the work you've done on this, but I also want to note that I have a nephew coming home for Christmas in about a week from LA, where he just hungers for mass transit, and I will be asked for an update. So this was timely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thanks for that. All right, Councilmember Barber.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2024-329 is for the council to take action on the Metro Green Line Extension Capital Grant Agreement with Hennepin County and Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority, Amendment Number 12. In September 2023, the council approved Resolution 2023-18, which identified a framework for funding the remaining capital requirements to complete construction and commence revenue service on the Metro Green Line Extension project. Under the resolution, the council will be responsible for 45% of the necessary capital funding up to a total contribution of $150 million. Hennepin County will be responsible for 55% of the necessary capital funding up to a total contribution of $190 million. In February 2024, Hennepin County and the council executed Amendment Number 11 to the Capital Grant Agreement, which increased the county's funding contribution by $100 million. This amendment provides the remaining county funding contribution identified in the resolution. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council take the following actions related to the Metro Green Line Extension project and authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute an amendment to contract 18I-094 with Hennepin County and Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority to add $90,294,640, bringing the total grant amount to $1,168,375,344 to fund Metro Green Line Extension project activities.
A second. Any additional discussion, comments? It's not often a council member gets to say a number that big in that resolution.
No, it was a little gobsmacking.
I will just note for the record that these numbers are consistent with our past forecasts and is over the past year, at least a year, more longer. Yeah. All right, any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, that motion carried. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2024-330 is for the council to take action on the Metro Green Line Extension project budget and schedule. The project office completed an extensive risk review led by the Federal Transit Administration, which evaluated project cost and schedule. The risk review validated a $2.86 billion project cost estimate and acknowledged revenue service in 2027. The updated project budget and year revenue service are consistent with values reported previously. Approval of the project budget and acknowledgement of the schedule are necessary to conclude the FTA risk review process. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council take the following actions related to the Metro Green Line Extension project and approve the updated project cost estimate of $2.86 billion as the project budget and acknowledge the revised project schedule that anticipates revenue service beginning in 2027.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We all know this project has come with its challenges along the way, but I will tell you, as we met those challenges, headstrong, and how are we going to figure out how we're going to do this. The work of our project office has been exemplary. You guys have really figured out ways to navigate through some of this, and Jim can attest the number of times I've asked him, is that 2.86 number going to change? He probably can play it on repeat in his brain by now because I ask him pretty much every week as we're having discussions, but it hasn't changed. They went through the process. They went through and really figured out what needed to be done to be on track with what we committed. Yeah, we did run into some things, but once we reset and made a plan forward, this plan has been executed to move this project forward, and it's really a testament to you and your staff. So just really want to acknowledge that.
Well, I will just echo that we can't say enough how challenging, but how forthright and professional the staff has been in achieving this settlement, by achieving this project. And this number, which I've just mentioned, has not changed, the full project budget. It is also gratifying that it has been verified by an independent outside federal agency after thorough review. So that really confirms that the work that we've done, that you've done as staff, and knowing, and many of us who are close to the project appreciate that just didn't happen. The fact that we didn't close the project down, the fact that it was negotiated while it was being built, while the freight rail kept operating every day in the corridor. We could go on and on, but remarkable achievements. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, that motion carried. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2024-335, which is a joint same week item, is a business item for the Metro B line. In 2020, the Minnesota legislature appropriated $55 million in state bonds for the B line, D line, and to the extent money remained after completion of those projects, to the E line for design and engineering. As part of the Minnesota statute section 16A, .642 process, unencumbered funds may avoid becoming subject to cancellation if the council establishes that contingency is otherwise obligated for potential changes as the project progresses towards 2025 completion. The proposed resolution 2024-26 will establish that $4,031,096 of unencumbered state bonds in the Metro B line project 62802 budget be established as project contingency to be otherwise obligated for potential changes through the construction final completion date of December 31st, 2025. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council pass Resolution 2024-26 establishing obligation for Metro B line project contingency through December 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right, any questions, comments? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep this brief. Most of this work that was actually on our consent agenda earlier tonight. This was heard both at Transportation and Management committees with very good conversations. Basically, this was an issue that arose in August, and our ABRT and finance staff figured out how to keep the money within our ABRT program. It was $10.5 million, so it wasn't insignificant. And I really just have to credit them with their creativity and how quickly they were able to pull everything together to really help our ABRT program continue. Specifically, hiding in the back row is Katie Roth, who runs the ABRT program, and I think, she really
Resting
kind
in the
of,
back.
yeah, she really spearheaded this, and I think, I just want to make sure that, credit goes out, because this was very complicated, but they were very, very good at what they did to get to this point.
Great, thank you. Any other additional comments? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carried. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2024-340 relates to the council's transit funding allocation policy 12-3. The policy builds on the existing state transit funding allocation policy, incorporates state law changes, adds elements reflecting current allocation practices for federal funding, and sets expectations for how the council will forecast and allocate transit funding. The background related to this item was heard by the council at the Committee of the Whole meeting on November 20th, and Transportation Committee acted on it on November 25th, and the Management Committee acted on it today. This policy sets principles in the region's approach to develop transit budget forecasts and allocations, including a 25-year forecast basis, establishes an interim allocation basis of regional transportation sales and use tax funds to suburban transit providers for calendar years 2025, based on actual collections on those providers' proportionate share of regional transit rides, incorporates current federal formula funding allocation practices, and prohibits use of new formula funds on new construction transit guideway projects, isolates Metro Mobility Program funding for these purposes. After adoption of Part 1 policy, regional policy development work will continue with further refinement to this policy after regional coordination and collaboration with transit providers. A Part 2 of this policy is anticipated for adoption in mid-2025 to take effect in 2026 and may incorporate changes to federal funding allocations and recipient relationships, ongoing sales tax funding allocations to transit providers, and other potential provisions to help advance the region's transit system. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council, 1, adopt the attached FM 12-3 transit funding allocation policy, and 2, direct staff to develop procedures to implement this policy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just obviously feeling a little thankful this evening for all this stuff, but this is some big work that we're passing. I commented at Management Committee that basically over a year's worth of work got boiled down to a 2-line action and 5-page policy, but there is hours and hours and hours of work, tons of meetings, a lot of outreach, a lot of work, spreadsheets, data, numbers, all of the things. Anyone who wants to see all the things can see all of the things. But I mean, there was a lot of work that went into this, and I think we have to recognize this was a really big step. Not only do we have the funding that we got through the legislature, but now we have the vision of how it's going to be allocated over the next 25 years, have an understanding of what our capital maintenance and some of those things that we couldn't even talk about a couple years ago now are really built into this. So this is a really big deal. I really want to thank Charles Carlson, Leslie Kinderis, and Ryan, as well as all the finance people who helped with this, because like I said, this was not a small feat. This was a really big undertaking, and it really does set our course for transit funding.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carried. Can I just say, because Deb has mentioned that any one of these some 30 actions that we're taking on transportation is a big deal. And maybe that one especially, but they all are. And I know what a year we've had, but we could talk more about that. But we've been crediting staff, which is we absolutely should. But I just want to thank Chair Barber and the council members on the Transportation Committee. I mean, this was a lot of heavy lifting and real conversation and analysis, and I know we're paid a lot, so that's worth it. But nonetheless, the efforts that were made were really pretty special and substantial. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that, you look like you're going to say something, so go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm just sorry to say the 2001 or whatever it is policy on federal funding acceptance has now finally been superseded by your current one. So congratulations to everybody on a 2-decade successful policy being sunsetted. That's all I got.
Oh, that's something. All right, the Management Committee. Councilmember Johnson isn't here, but Councilmember Chai Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item, business item 2024-332 JT same week, Unified Budget Amendment. The 2024 fourth quarter budget amendment makes changes to the capital budget in Metro Transit. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee on December 9th and the Management Committee earlier today, December 11th. In the Metro Transit capital budget, the amendment adds or changes the amount for 6 projects in Metro Transit's ACP. The amendment adds $166.48 million in Hennepin County funds and $41.62 million in Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority funds to the Blue Line Extension Project. The business item in the Transportation Committee contained a discrepancy in the narrative around the date of approval by the Council for Project 61403, noting that the Council would take action on November 13th when we are in fact taking action today, December 11th. Hennepin County will take action on their part of this project on December 12th. The motion and tables approved by the Transportation Committee were correct. This amendment also adjusts the use of state bond funds and local funds in the B-line, D-line, and E-line projects according to the provisions of the 2020 legislative bonding appropriation. The individual projects and their changes are outlined in Table 9. The motion is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2024 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached table.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Yes.
Mr. Chair, just one point, we've talked a lot this year too about, as we're thinking about staffing and needs to be able to build up to meet the moments that are coming. You see some of that in the presentations here today. These budget amendments have been baked in as a part of that work, and I know that's been a conversation at Management Committee as well, but I just wanted to continue to bring that up, in that when we get asked questions, some of what I point to is like the actions being taken this week, and they're happening quarter by quarter as we're staffing up. So thanks to the staff and council members who worked through all this at Management Committee. You are enabling us to continue forward to meet a growing region and a growing system.
Great, appreciate that. All righty, any other comments? No? All those in favor say aye.
Is this supposed to be a roll call since it's a
That's
budget
the
item?
budget.
Good, fourth quarter budget amendment. That's not what I'm showing, but.
Yes.
General Counsel? Yes. When in doubt, let's take a roll call. All righty. Mindy,
Yes.
please call the roll.
All right. I know Johnson is gone, so Chambliss?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Barber?
Aye.
Pacheco?
Aye.
Let's see, Morales?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Cedarburg?
Aye.
Bento?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Delcar's gone, and Wolf?
Aye.
And Zelli, aye. All right, that motion carried. Thank you, parliamentarian Wendy Wolf. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Item 2024-344, same week, annual sole source hardware and software maintenance services. Traditionally, Information Services has brought forth an annual business item requesting sole source approval. Council Procurement Procedure FM 14-1A, Section 11, non-competitive procurements addresses sole source procurements and provides the following guidance. Sole source procurement of original equipment manufacturer repairs, parts, equipment and systems, software maintenance and support, or other services that are required on a continuous basis may be authorized on an ongoing basis. The 2025 Information Services sole source vendor list was reviewed by procurement staff for accuracy and reasonableness. The item has been reviewed and approved by Management Committee. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the regional administrator to execute sole source purchase orders for ongoing maintenance, hosted services, and support services in an amount not to exceed $3,450,000. This includes installed software and hardware referenced in the attached 2025 Information Services sole source vendor list.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carried. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is my last monologue. Item 2024-345, same week, Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, Amendment 2, Contract 21P057. In May 2021, Metropolitan Council executed Microsoft licensing enterprise agreement for a 3-year term of $13.5 million, inclusive of $4.5 million for Azure services. The initial adoption of Azure was slower than anticipated, with $3.2 million of spent, $3.2 million spent through year 3. In March of 2024, additional funding of $1.35 million was approved for year 4 funding. This request was made in line with council policy as 10% baseline of the original contract price. Expanding infrastructure needs require an additional $3.3 million in funding. The funding covers user licensing and cloud services. This item has been reviewed and approved by the Management Committee. Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute an amendment to contract 21P057 with Insight Public Sector, Inc. to add $3.3 million for Microsoft licenses and support of Windows, Office 365, SharePoint, and Azure cloud services for a contract amount not to exceed $18,150,000.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Cedarburg. Any discussion? Yes, Councilmember
Mr.
Cedarburg.
Chair, thank you. We had a very good discussion about this at the Management Committee. And it, just even with your personal computers, how license agreements go up and they go up and up and up, and we're spending. And IS and the management will be looking at this and finding ways to manage these costs and to dig deeper. So we know that they will continue to increase, but that it's not just a vacuum, that it's not a rubber stamp.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that people know that just like you would at your house, it's like, do I really need this? Do I not need this? Oh, ouch, it's going up too much. IS is doing the same thing. So I just really appreciate that.
Appreciate that comment. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion carried. I had predicted that the business items would will last till about 5. I was pretty close. But we now have a time for a break. Please, we're locking the doors. Nobody leave. We're going to have a budget vote, very important. and a public comment period. But that starts at 6. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You skipped the reports part. Are we going to do that after the budget?
I'm going to do that now. I have no major reports except while Councilmember Vento was not in the room last week, we talked about you. We will have more opportunity to honor you, but appreciate that you are resigning from the council in February. And I know we all care deeply and appreciate deeply the work you provided for this council and your thoughts, which will continue, and in more than one way, even past February, but knowing that you are sitting council member in February. I also want to acknowledge that Tenson Dolkar has also submitted her letter of resignation also to be effective in February. And she'll be traveling in the next month, but is expected back in early February for some important deliberation and votes. I know that her schedule, both travel and work, is getting to a point where it's not, I guess the word tenable, but feasible for her to fulfill the role as a council member, so we respect that. So having said that, are there any other reports that anybody else would like? Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Metropolitan Area Water Supply Advisory Committee and its TAC met this afternoon to consider the water supply plan that is part of our regional development guide. They are the final approval authority on that, and then it's included in the overall water policy plan. So I just wanted to let everybody know that it passed unanimously, and our staff person, Jen Kostrowski, went to the dollar store and got everybody little noisemakers, so we got to celebrate our accomplishment. And it was, so several years ago, staff came to Mossack and said, we have a different idea on how to do this. We want it to be more collaborative. And we actually did sort of a bottom up where the water suppliers actually helped write the plan. And we went back to them repeatedly, is this what you're thinking? And it worked fantastic. There was risk in that people just wouldn't show up for meetings and participate, but they showed up in droves. It improved the relationship between our staff and the communities that we serve, and it was just overwhelmingly supported when they voted today, where the previous plan had been much more contentious. So I just wanted to, give a kudos to our water supply staff who suggested that, to all of the communities that participated, and our Mossack and TAC members for really a heavy load on writing a totally different way of doing the plan. But I really appreciate all of their hard work and the good outcome that we got with that.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and process matters, so appreciate that. Anybody have any other reports? Mr. Regional Administrator, anything from you?
Mr. Chair, just two things. I received notice today just from being on the email list that the winter warming spaces opened in Ramsey County. I don't have the exact dates on when they're opening in Hennepin, but I'm going to go ahead and say they've either opened or are about to open. There's usually good alignment. This really matters for our operations as well when we think about the dangers of people sleeping outside and then seeking other forms of, I use the word shelter in lowercase italicized letters when we're talking about transit as the ultimate place where people may seek refuge. And we've seen the dangers today in a homeless encampment in Minneapolis light up in flames, and what can happen as you get into the winter months and heating elements. So appreciate just all the partnership. We continue to do a lot of work with our local partners, particularly in the communities bearing the brunt of much of this service delivery, and trying to coordinate as much as we can, and to our operators who are out every day demonstrating compassion in the work that they do and in the way they approach people in this region who are just trying to find their way through a really cold evening or night or morning. So that'll be update number one. If you have any interest in learning more, please let me know. We have our homeless team that I work closely with, Lisa Barajas and her group, and Leslie Canderas and her entire team, and we'd be happy to share additional information as we go. Other than that, you always get to the last meeting of the year, and to Councilmember Barber's earlier points, it's like there are certain markers we put in front of ourselves during the year and said, whether it's a short timeline or a long timeline or a condensed whatever, there are things you have to get done. And I think the piece that I would just like to appreciate of the council is you head into a legislative session, which always brings uncertainty, and in some ways more uncertainty this year just based on some of the mix. But putting all of that aside, the narrative of the organization and what is it you have in place and what is it you're building and what does it look like and where are you trying to go and where you align strategy with resources and vision, I would contend you have a much stronger story to be told this session about the visions for the transportation system. What does that mean when we think about our regional partners and their work in that system and the role we play in partnership? And this message is being validated in meetings that the chair and I have been at in the last few weeks with downtown business communities, with broader regional stakeholders around housing and planning. And I just want to thank all of you for your work in helping to both lead and support that, and to the staff team that's here and not here for their work in helping to support, lead, and execute that work. When you get to come to work at a place, you hope to be a part of moving things forward in those types of ways. And I think I hope you see that we have done some of that this year, and we got a lot to do next year. So that is my end of the year appreciation to everybody, and glad to be a part of the team. Thank you.
This is the last business meeting, but we are meeting next week, Committee of the Whole, so this is not goodbye, but stay tuned. Councilmember Lindstrom.
One final kudos. I want to give a shout out to Community Development that pulled together a really fantastic event yesterday at Shoreview Community Center. As you all know, we have, based on the legislature, new requirements for comp plans around climate. And we pulled together, I think it was right around 90 people from all local government people, cities, counties, from all across the region to talk about what those minimum requirements will be and what sort of tools and resources we can provide to them so that they can meet those minimum requirements. It was very well organized, well attended, and just fantastic conversations for a day-long event.
Great, thank you for sharing. Ms. General Counsel.
Mr. Chair, thank you, council members. It's nice that I have 47 minutes today.
Don't waste a minute of it.
You all have to stay till 6, so that's really gratifying. I want to briefly revisit 2024-335, the Metro B line item today. The resolution isn't on our online agenda for today as a separate attachment. So for those people at home who might be looking to see the specific language of the resolution, it is as an attachment to the November 9th Transportation Committee business item, and we will also get that uploaded to the website just so it's all in one place for people who may be following along online. And as Jim was talking about, how long we've been working on the Green Line. Next week will be my 15th anniversary at the Metropolitan Council. So truly, the days are long, the years are short, maybe. But anyway, that's my report.
Thank you. All right, anything else anybody would like to share? We have 46 minutes. Okay, this is a pause. We are not adjourning, but we'll reconvene at 6 o'clock for public comment and a vote or a presentation and then a vote on our budget and levies. So stay tuned. Hang around till 6.
Yeah.
Did you want to speak? No. Okay. All right. Hey, it's 6 o'clock, and we're now at the point of the agenda for public comment on the budget and levies for the 2025 adopted unified budget. And notifications to the public for comments were included in our business items. So I hope everyone here in the council has had a chance to look at the previously submitted comments. And the notification for the opportunity for public comment was included in proposed property tax statements. I'm sure you all got those, and they have hearing dates and times, which is really why we had to stick to this 6 o'clock schedule. Having said all that, I don't believe we have anybody who is coming forward to make a public comment. So I'll give one last call for anybody, any resident who would like to make a public comment before the board. Because there is no one, I am not going to go through a very lengthy procedure of how they're going to speak and how we're going to limit their time. But I will have a last call for comments. Hearing or seeing none, I'm going to call our Chief Financial Officer, Ned Smith, to come up and prepare a short presentation. And after that, we will deliberate his presentation and take a vote. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. Again, I'm Ned Smith. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Metropolitan Council. Normally, the November economic forecast update is included in all of the paperwork that would be associated with the budget passing. However, this year that forecast was delayed, and it kind of didn't make it in time before it went to print. So what we want to do now is talk through what those changes are to the forecast, and that they will be included next year when we do any sort of budget amendment. So from a high level, just to ground us, the Minnesota Management and Budget Office does 2 forecasts a year, one in February, one in November. So this just came out actually it came out on December 4th. For the state economic forecast in terms of MVEST, the motor vehicle sales tax, and the overall sales tax. At a high level, the November 24 forecast reflects a slight increase for MVEST, about 0.3% for 25, 3.9% for 26 for state fiscal year 26, and 3.4 in 27. So what does all of that mean? Put together, after the suburban transit providers receive their share, there'll be an additional $27 million over 3 years to the council's transportation programs. This also does include the first time that they are forecasting 28 and 29, and those look healthy at about 4.2% for at a 4.2% growth rate for 28 and a 4.8% growth rate into 29. We think this is mostly driven by interest rates coming back down. So when interest rates were high, it was more expensive to buy a car, so more people were leasing, and we don't receive revenue when people lease a car. We only get it when they purchase. And so now that interest rates are coming down, we're seeing more purchase activity. So that's good news. Unfortunately, not good enough. So looking at the sales tax, initial forecasts have been a bit more optimistic, but right now we're looking at a reduction of 7.2% in state fiscal year 25, 7.2% in 26, 7.7 in 27, and then the most recent, over the most recent February 24 forecast. So all of that rolled together, after we distribute 5% for our active transportation grants, this will be a reduction of $95 million for the council's transportation programs over 3 years. And again, this is the first time for forecasting 28 and 29 biennium, and that includes 3.6 and 3.6 growth year over year for both of those years. I think it's obviously not the best news, but there's still a lot of uncertainty in this. I think we're still normalizing as this is a new tax, and seeing what the trends are and how it's impacted over time is changing. So we're going to keep an eye on this and see how it progresses. And again, normally these would impact our revenues, so they would be baked into our 25 revenue. We didn't get it in time, but as soon as we have an amendment in the first, anytime in 2025, our revenue numbers will be updated to reflect that. So otherwise, we would talk about any other changes to the proposed budget. You may recall we passed this, the public comment budget in October, and sometimes there are changes to that budget between then and now. In this case, there are not. You have received the public comment input, and that it was forwarded to you. We will incorporate the updated MVEST in next year, as I said. And then also today's, as also was stated earlier, but just want to make sure it's clear, the capital budget amendments that we just approved, that you just approved an hour ago, are also not included because we didn't want to presume that they would be passed, but they have been, so that will also be reflected in the 25, any amendment that comes through in 25. So that's just a high level to know where we are and what changes have and have not happened. And at this point, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Ned? No?
All right.
Thanks, Ned.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. And I will turn it over to Councilmember Lee to move adoption of the budget.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Business item 2024-327, adoption of resolutions for the Metropolitan Council's 2025 unified budget and the 2024 payable 2025 tax levies. The unified budget process completed over the past year included the adoption of the 2025 preliminary operating budget and an increase on the upper limit on our property tax levy of 2% on August 21st. On October 25th, the council was asked and adopted the public comment budget. Notifications to the public for comments were included in our business items when we adopted the preliminary operating budget and levies in August, and again when we adopted the public comment draft in October. Notification of the opportunities for public comment was also included in the proposed property tax statements. There have been no changes from the public comment budget adopted by the council in October to the final 2025 unified budget. As was just noted by our CFO, Ned Smith, the capital budget amendment considered and adopted earlier this evening in business item 2024-332 will be incorporated into the capital budget and reflected in the first budget amendment in 2025. At that time, we will also incorporate the updated November forecast for Invest and regional transportation sales and use tax forecast into 2025 operating budget. The public comments that were received in advance of this meeting were forwarded to each council member for their consideration. Mr. Chair, the proposed action on business item 2023-327 is for the adoption of resolutions 2024-20 through 25 for the Metropolitan Council's 2025 unified budget and 2024 payable 2025 property tax levies.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And since we have a time for discussion and we haven't taken a vote, two people have come in to make public comment, and if they have an interest, but they don't have an interest. Is that correct?
Mostly here to listen.
Okay, all right. I just want to double check. Thank you. Any discussion among council members? I've been reading some of the comments. Many of them referring to how big and powerful we are, which is gratifying. I'm not sure totally true. With that, we will take a roll call vote.
Chambliss?
Aye.
Dr. Carter?
Aye.
Barber?
Aye.
Pacheco?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Cedarburg?
Aye.
Bento?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Zally?
Aye. All right, that motion carried. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council members. Appreciate you staying over for this public process. With that, our work here today is done. I would wish you happy holidays, which I will, but we do have a meeting of the Committee of the Whole next week, so I hope to see you all then. And in the meantime, thanks for all your work and time. This meeting is adjourned.
These comments by.
I just have some work for you.
Oh, I can do that.
Thank you.